Well, let's just get right into it. I mean, T is for torture porn. We've been talking to a couple different directors here about the ABCs of Death too, and this was obviously, I think, one of the standout segments. This is going to be one of the segments that everybody is going to be talking about if they're not already talking about it. So let's just start at the beginning. What was the impetus for this? I mean, obviously, now I'm curious because some of the people have told us that either they give you a letter or you choose a letter. So how did it go for you? Let's start there.
We chose a letter. Last year, or the year that they did the original, T was the open letter, and we're like, oh, sweet, I want to do T is for torture porn. But then we saw T is for toilet, and we're like, no, that one has to win. That one deserves to be in the competition. So we just kind of sat on it for a while, and then at Fantastic Fest 2 years ago when American Mary was here, we were drinking, as you do at Fantastic Fest with Aunt Timpson. He said, would you guys have done it if we asked? I was like, fuck yeah, are you kidding me? He's like, oh, I'll ask you in the future. And I was like, yeah, you won't remember talking to me. And he did.
And it's so funny because, well, we all remember Ellis for Libido in the first one. They got in trouble for a lot of the things they did. So when
Timo is such a good director.
He's so talented, but they gave us a manifesto of 7 pages of, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And I was like, oh no, my thing's about tentacle rape. How the fuck am I going to do anything like this? So I kept sending these really eloquent, nice emails being like, hey, so artistically, I was doing this thing about radical feminism, and anyways, I need a tentacle to go in someone's ass. And Mark Walcott was like, well, make sure that some blood comes out of there and semen. I was like, God bless you, Mark Walcott.
Not have it any other way.
See, now I'm curious to know what's on those 2 pages of what you can't do, because I mean, considering everything that is, you do get away with in those films. So, well, I mean, like when you started putting this together, I mean, was the idea always kind of like, was it always there, or was it one of those things that kind of like, did it organically build upon just a concept? Like, did you always know exactly how it was going to begin, exactly how it was going to end? Because obviously when you're working in the confines of like, is it 4 minutes?
About 4 minutes or under.
That's not a lot of time to really tell a story. So, is that kind of daunting in and of itself?
Well, Mark, I watch a lot of porn, as does my sister.
Yeah, sure.
As does Tristan.
Sometimes even together.
And we had it follow the one of those.
Change the dynamic of this interview.
We followed it like a backroom casting where the girl comes in and she's like, oh, I'm so demure, and usually that girl gets fucking ass raped. But in ours, it turned out a little bit differently. So we wanted to have that whole misdirect. We wanted you to feel like, I feel like the real horror is the objectification and like how abusive they are with this model. And then the thing is, Yumi came to get her fuck on. You just didn't know she had tentacles instead of a pussy.
Right.
The best thing about the setup is after you fall in love with Yumi and you watch her and you're like, I hate Connor Sweeney. Damn you. You be nice to Tristan Risk. You can literally do anything to those men. Yes. And not only can you get away with it, people are cheering for them to get raped and fucked and dick choked and all that stuff. And it's wonderful because it's like, if you watch just the end half out of context, it's like, oh, that's a bit harsh. We also wanted to do the red light and that animated eyes to make it like a hentai. So it's our favorite type of porn, POV gonzo and hentai.
Just you want to talk about working with them and what they bring as directors for all this, and kind of your thoughts on the whole. I mean, just doing something like this, it's such a great outlet to kind of tell the most bold of stories in such a short period of time. But you want to talk a little bit about your experience and just how you feel working with these two?
Absolutely. There's nothing that these two could ask me to do that I would refuse. And when I found out that they were, clearly.
Again, what's on the 2 pages that you can't do? So there you go. Applause, everybody. Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, the script they came up with, I was like, oh god, tentacles are my jam. Like, I watch so much hentai, so much tentacle rape. I wear squid parts. I film myself with squid eating sushi. So I was kind of like, if you hire anybody else to play this, I will kill them, and I will make a giant taxidermy squid monster. I'll make a tentacuddle. But my tentacles don't want to just cuddle. So I was really excited to work with them and just do something that I don't particularly feel like any of my personal boundaries were pushed with this, which is funny because I think everybody else is like looking really, really upset about it, which is great because it's like what we think is just like, yeah, this is just going to be fun for us. Everyone else is just like looking at us sideways after barfing in the toilet, which is great. But it's just like, the real horror is that this actually happens a lot to girls, and that, you know, they feel obligated or pressured to get into these situations and then just go with the flow because they don't want to seem uncool or they want to get the job. And it's like, no, we need to show them that sometimes if you do bad things happen to you. And honestly, all the guys got what they wanted. They got laid, just not in the way they wanted to.
You get, yeah, it's a happy ending of sorts, just maybe not all for everybody involved, but you know.
Except for Lawrence Harvey, he couldn't. It was a hard wank for him at the very end. He's just trying. It's not happening.
It's like taffy.
Yeah.
I'm convinced he was actually having a wank because there's so many ones where he's tucking his underwear after. I was like, Lawrence, what are you, Daniel Day-Lewis? Are you method?
Well, that was second unit directed by Jill Six, and I got 12 takes of that.
Wow.
12 takes of that. I keep it on loop on my laptop.
I was going to ask you, was there anything that ended up on the cutting room floor that, like, maybe for either time purposes or maybe just because, we can't do that? You know, was there anything like that, or did everything make it in?
This was one of the brilliant parts of my career where everything made it in. And knock on wood, it's never going to fucking happen again. And I was so happy that they took the wanking and put it at the very, like, kiss to the end of the movie. I was like, we won the rave!
Yeah,
To have the end credits scene, like, oh, it's a big honor. I was so excited.
So when in doubt, always put wanking in. Yeah, there you go. That's the lesson.
Well, I wanted to mention, I mean, this has been the last couple of years for you guys has been amazing. I mean, you've had all sorts of great things going on in See No Evil 2.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I for some reason I've got so many horror titles going through my head.
I wonder why.
See No Evil 2.
Some people were thanking it or congratulating us for doing Evil Dead 2. I was like, oh, not that I know of.
I'll take that.
But that's obviously a really cool thing too. I mean, being able to do something like that, and then can you talk a little bit about? I mean, was that a great experience for you being able to take on something like that? That's already kind of got an established fan base.
Well, it's so funny because we saw the original See No Evil, and we started watching wrestling when Kane was introduced, and I saw a lot of opportunities. I was like, don't do that. Put the camera here. He's so tall. You should kill other people in different ways.
We're awful to watch movies with. We're like, no, change the camera angle. You got to shoot low so he looks bigger.
Yeah, our biggest ambition is to do every subgenre in horror, and we finally got to do a scary slasher movie, and I got to do it with Danielle Harris and Catherine Isabel and Shalane Simmons, all scream queens that usually get horribly murdered or kick some fucking ass. It was like, but I get to be in control of it. It was like just like a total fangirl wet dream.
We really did get to recreate the character of Jacob Goodnight. One of the most important things is you have Kane over here, you have Glenn Jacobs over here. Jacob Goodnight had to be neither of those two, and the mask and the personality and the costumes and the theme music that he now has and the array of weapons and his emotional abuse that he has suffered from his mother in the first one, that all comes into play. I mean, to be a horror fan and say, oh, I made a Mike Myers, I mean, who the fuck gets to do that? It's so cool.
Yeah, and Lionsgate and WWE Studios, especially the studio head Michael Louisi, they let us do everything. We got to use a Phantom camera, which is $10,000 a day, which usually they say no, and he's like, yep, here you go. I'm like, I love you so much.
Yeah, during the end battles, there's a shot that I always lean over and like, is it worth 10 grand? I hope so.
It is.
Well, I know we have to wrap it up. I just want to ask you real quick, do you have a favorite segment in this new ABCs of Death? Like, if you had to pick, like, what was your personal favorite segment, what would you pick? I mean, obviously, you know we all love this segment. But if you had to pick another segment, what would it be? Yes.
I would pick W is for Wish by that fucking talented Steve Kostansky. That was so good. He has such a gift for taking a decade and doing a satire farce on it in a perfect way. That was such a 90s like action figure like commercial.
My favorite was F is for Falling by Navid and Aaron. I mean, the directors of Rabies and Big Bad Wolves. Not only was it very cool and very emotional, but it was so political too in such a small amount of time. I don't know how they don't keep getting in trouble in Israel, although I understand that they kind of do.
Well, if we need to marry them so they can come to Canada to escape persecution, then we'll keep that on the table. My favorite was D for Deloused because just the stop motion animation in there, and just it was such a surrealist concept. I was just like, oh, my Dadaist side is so happy right now, and it's dark Dadaist. So I really enjoyed that, and just the time it took to make something like that, doing that kind of animation is just so intense. Like it was definitely, you can tell it was a labor of love, a very weird love.
Thank you so much, ladies. We'll have more information down below where you can find out about ABCs of Death 2. And be on the lookout for segment T, because you're not going to forget it. You're not likely to forget it anytime soon.
I hope so. Jesus.
See you soon.